With great privilege comes great pressure. Ryan Day said that today. He has said that a few times. CJ Stroud as well. And he has lived it for 5+ years at Ohio State. And Ryan Day, of course, met with the media today. We'd like to review it here today with Bill Kurelic from 247 Sports. You can catch him on bucknuts.com. Bill, how you doing today?
Doing well, Mark. How about you?
I am doing just fine. I do appreciate you stopping by to give your insight. So we'll start there in regards to the most current activity at Ohio State, and what is really brimming right now is certainly Bill O'Brien's situation. So Ryan Day was very upfront about where it stands right now, that, hey, yes, he's in the building, he's working, he's ours. We want it to stay that way, but you never know what's going to happen. And Bill O'Brien is reported to be the front runner at Boston College.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of optimism from the people at Boston College that I've talked to that it's pretty well known that he is their man. Now, what's not known is he going there for sure or not? And I think there is some optimism, certainly, from those people at Boston College that he is going to go there. But on the other hand, as you mentioned, it's been business as usual for him at Ohio State. He was at the staff meeting on Monday morning. He has been working. He was in the building this morning, et cetera, et cetera. So our latest report was that unconfirmed, that he seemed to be likely to go to Boston College, but that has not been confirmed and nothing has been announced. And, we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously he would make plenty of sense for them. He's a big name. He would, I think, help with the transfer portal in that I don't think many guys at Boston College would enter the portal if he was going there. And, he's had success and all. I mean, he was successful at Penn State, and he's a Boston College person, so to speak. So it all makes sense. But on the other hand, he's at Ohio State, and it's not called the Ohio State for nothing.
Yeah, I got to think it's one of the few jobs in the country at that level as a coordinator that may keep somebody around as opposed to taking a head coaching position at a Power 5 spot. Although I've always wondered about that dynamic, Bill, in regards to a head coach. And we're talking about a head coach at Penn State. We're talking about a head coach in the NFL that then later in their career, or at least at this stage for him, would work under somebody else. And how that dynamic works out, of course, it depends on the personalities involved, but it is kind of a different type situation.
Yeah, for sure. And, Ryan Day, he seemed today to be, I guess, cautiously optimistic that everything was going to be worked out. I think that's the feeling and the vibe that I got, and our guys at bucknuts.com that were at the press conference got. But they've been working on this hard and trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen. And nobody knows for certain right now.
So that kind of transitions us into another topic of conversation that was brought up several times, and that, of course, concerns Ryan Day and what many people feel that he does best, and that's call plays. But he's running a major football program, and it's just become increasingly taxing and difficult to continue to do both. A lot of people put the word out there, it's impossible to do both at the same time. And when Ryan Day responds, he typically says, oh, it's difficult to do both at the same time. And it's been a transition for him to try to pull himself away from that. And then he finally they get somebody in play that is at the top of his game in regards to that same skill set. And now that may get ripped away from them. And then they're going to have to go with plan B or C or D, depending on what type of activities happened since they interviewed. Do you have any idea who else could be out there that were probably on their original list that they had interviewed?
Well, one thing Ryan Day said today was that, they did interview other people. So there are people out there that, while Bill O'Brien, Ryan Day made it known he was the guy. He stood out amongst those interviews. And obviously that's the case. He got picked. He accepted the job. But he was not the only interview. He's not the only person that Ryan Day talked to. And when you look at some of Ryan Day's hires, I think back to his first defensive coordinator, I was kind of tipped off early on that one that don't expect Ryan Day to pick a guy everybody is very familiar with for that job. I was told expect him to pick an NFL guy that not really much of anybody is talking about, and that guy to be Jeff Hafley, who now is back in the NFL and who Bill O'Brien could be taking the place of. And that was a really good hire. Jeff Hafley, that first year at Ohio State, really did a good job with Ohio State's defense. So he was kind of a guy that Ryan Day, I guess, picked out of not out of the blue, but as far as everyone else was concerned, it was out of the blue. And it turned out to be very successful. So I think that, you've heard the names of Chip Kelly and Candle and a few others, and maybe one of those guys would be the guy. But I still wouldn't totally rule out the possibility of Ryan Day coming up with somebody that maybe not is not being discussed right now, and perhaps an NFL guy. I mean, he's reached into the NFL. He's got a background in the NFL, and he's reached into that bag before.
For all that Chip Kelly has achieved, especially at the collegiate level, and most of it, of course, at Oregon 10 so years ago, that he has really put himself out there as an offensive coordinator candidate, both at the college and NFL levels. And you wonder if he's just kind of done with being responsible for everything that a coach has to be responsible for these days, with the added NIL and transfer portal layers to it.
Yeah, that I think for everyone that myself included that has anything to do with college football, the transfer portal and the NIL has changed lives dramatically. It's I think it's really made the NFL the place to be for college coaches. Jeff Hafley leaving a head coaching job at Boston College to go back to the NFL to be a defensive coordinator. It's just the transfer portal and the NIL. It's made life a lot more difficult, college coaching wise, and actually for us recruiting people wise too.
Yeah, Bill, I posted a video a couple of weeks ago. I tried to size up as best I could the differences between college and the NFL, and I think most of those have already existed in regards to a lot of coaches don't want to chase around a bunch of 17-year-olds, but now you have to recruit your locker room at the same time every December and every spring, at the same time as not just the added layer of recruiting the transfer portal and trying to be a recruiter again to players that are a year, 2, 3 years into the process of being a college player, but just determining as a scout who you want from a talent perspective, even before you go through the recruiting process of having to then, because I remember Urban Meyer used to make this comment all the time, as other coaches did. I'm just focused on my team, just focused on my program. I just know the only team I'm concerned with is our team and the next team we're playing. And other than that, I don't know what's going on across the country, but these coaches can't be like that anymore.
No, I mean, a good example was when the problems were occurring in East Lansing with the Michigan State program. Ohio State was very proactive and on top of that. They were they knew something was going to coming down the pipe there, and that there was likely going to be a coaching change and all that. And they were, I guess, doing their due diligence on possible Michigan State players way ahead of the game there. And then lo and behold, something did happen. So they were prepared. But who was prepared for Nick Saban to all of a sudden announce his retirement? That one came out of the blue. I don't think anybody saw that one coming, and that started up a whole new level of evaluations of everybody on the Alabama roster. So it's really crazy. I mean, even Boston College, Ohio State would love to have their offensive tackle Ozzie Trapio. He would be a great addition to the Ohio State program. So all of a sudden, Jeff Hafley takes over as the defensive coordinator, leaves Boston College, and lo and behold, maybe Ozzie Trapio gets in the portal. Now, in his case, Ohio State knew very well about him a year ago that if he were going to get in the portal a year ago, they were ready to really take a good look at that one. But what about all the other guys on the Boston College roster that might get in the portal? So it's really just added a whole nother layer. And like I tell people, when I started doing this 36 years ago, I would have never envisioned that before my career was over, I'd be using words such as the transfer portal, the NIL agents, and so on and so forth. It's really been an evolution, I guess you'd say.
And possibly unions and pay for play and salaries and salary caps, and who knows what's going to be coming on down the line. And of course, the Saban retirement and the Bama opening triggers Washington, that triggers Arizona, that triggers San Jose State, and then the cascade of all those transfer portal windows going another 30 days, 30 days, 30 days. It's crazy.
Yeah, the funny thing about that, Mark, was that when Sherrone Moore was elevated, I think most people saw that coming. But when he was elevated to the head job at Michigan, you kind of had the feeling, well, maybe the transfer portal is finally going to be really closed for at least a little while till the spring transfer portal period. Then, lo and behold, Jeff Hafley goes to the NFL, and the Boston College job opens. So that gives Boston College players 30 days to enter the transfer portal. And, the cycle just continues and continues as long as college head coaches continue to leave or go somewhere else. So, maybe this time the portal will finally be closed till the spring period opens again. But who knows? Not necessarily.
So there's the domino effect there, folks. The domino effect here is that we typically do our Buckeyes live show every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time with Steve Hellwagon, Kevin Noon, and Tony Gerdeman. But with the Ryan Day news conference, we got bumped to Thursday. So join us tomorrow, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time over on the Buckeyes channel. We got Bill Kurlick here from 247 Sports, bucknuts.com. Please join him right there. A wealth of knowledge, information, insight into the Buckeyes and college football. And the other big topic, of course, was the quarterback room. And a number of reporters seem to hit up Ryan Day on this point, and it's an obvious one. What about reps? How did these guys get enough reps when you got 5, I don't want to call them elite quarterbacks, but guys that are viable in the running for a starting spot at a place like Ohio State? And I just got to think Ryan Day's going to have to get awfully creative in terms of trying to get them a number of reps.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun spring practice period and spring game period on Ohio State. In fact, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm not sure that I've looked forward more to an Ohio State spring practice period and spring game than what's going to happen this year. I mean, you've got the new guy coming in, Will Howard, who I think everyone expects to be the starter, and myself included, but you never know. And even as a starter, you want to see what he can do. Is he going to be a lot better than Kyle McCord, for instance? Yeah, I think he's going to be an upgrade. But again, we don't know that till we see him in action. Then behind that, who's going to be the number 2 guy if Will Howard wins the job? Is it going to be Devin Brown? Quite possibly. But who's to say Devin Brown's not going to win that job? It's not out of the question. But who's going to be the number 2 guy? You've got Lincoln Keenholz, who played in the Cotton Bowl. You've got Devin Brown, of course, who started the Cotton Bowl. And then the most intriguing one, people maybe are thinking Aaron Nolan, the freshman, the 2024 kid that just enrolled at Ohio State about a month ago. But Julian Sayin, that one's the real intriguing one to me. I mean, he was a guy that Ohio State absolutely loved and wanted before he committed to Alabama. And of course, he did enroll at Alabama and was there for a really brief period of time. Now he's at Ohio State. He's a really talented kid. If there are some transfers after the spring practice session, spring game, I think Julian Sayin is going to be very much in line to be the backup quarterback.
Wow.
Again, if there are transfers. I'm not saying there will be, but you don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. That's the bottom line. We don't know. But I think it's reasonable to think somebody's going to transfer out of 5 quarterbacks, because all of these guys should be playing somewhere in the Power 5, you would think, if they met anything close to their ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age of the portal, you're fighting hard to keep 3 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. Prior to the portal, everyone wanted a quarterback in every recruiting class, and they generally had 4 scholarship quarterbacks and on occasion 5 on their roster at one time. Like you said, Mark, now that's 5 quarterbacks, scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. That doesn't really happen anymore, and it's even tough to get 4. So I think it's legitimate to think that after spring practice this year at Ohio State, that somebody likely will leave.
Here's my hope for Will Howard in regards to what he could possibly achieve this year in terms of his level of play was if you take Kyle McCord, and let's not discount Kyle McCord. I know a lot of Ohio State fans are down on him, and he did have his rough patches last year, but he's still a former 5-star through 24 touchdowns, had a fine season in a number of regards. But if Will Howard, let's say, is no better than Kyle McCord in regards to his skill set as a thrower and his top end ability, he brings 2 things to the table that Kyle McCord doesn't. Kyle McCord was a fresh new starter. Will Howard's had a wealth of experience. He's played in Big 12 championship games. He's played in a Sugar Bowl. He's played 2.5 seasons at Kansas State. So he should just flat out be better based on experience. And number 2, he brings the running dynamic that Kyle McCord didn't.
Yeah, he's got, as you kind of referred to, Mark, he's got over 24 starts in college before he even takes the field at Ohio State. So that's big. I mean, that's a lot of experience. And as you mentioned, as you brought up, in big games, he's in. But again, and I love that. But I also love another thing you brought up is his athletic ability and ability to run. He's going to give Ohio State another dimension. Now, Ryan Day does not typically run the quarterbacks. He's not, we're not talking about Braxton Miller here. That's not what Ryan does. Urban Meyer, he liked to run the quarterbacks a lot. And he had some great ones, Braxton Miller being one of them. That's not going to be Will Howard. But I think you're going to see something a little bit along the lines of a Josh Allen type in Will Howard. It's going to be able to run, and he's going to do it effectively. He's 6'5" and 242 pounds. And, that's a lot to bring down for opposing defensive backs. I think that's a really a dynamic that I really like that's going to be added to the Ohio State offense. And, the thing that always in my mind, dating back to high school, I said this about Joe Burrow, was his ability to keep plays alive long enough that he didn't have to run, but he kept them alive long enough with his legs that he found someone open. And I think Will Howard can do that too.
There is a lot made of the Michigan culture, and I think it's legit. I'm not going to discount it in any way. I don't think that just because Michigan has a strong culture or had one, we don't know if it's going to continue, that means that Ohio State did not have a good culture. I don't think there has to be an either or there. Now we see this core of players who made the decision to come back. And of course, Ryan Day spoke to that and has a number of times in regards to what that says about these players wanting to show that they can come back to this university and be up with the all-time greats.
Yeah, and I had said this quite some time back. Back in early December or late November, that watch out for Ohio State and their focus on player retention. And that's another one of those terms that I never thought I would necessarily be talking about 36 years ago, player retention. Michigan had a big advantage the last 2 years in that they were playing with a lot of 4th and 5th year guys, top guys. On the other hand, Ohio State, the guys that they were recruiting so well and have been recruiting so well that often their guys left after 3 years and went to the NFL. So their top guys were usually 2nd and 3rd year guys, where Michigan's players tended to stay. They weren't as highly recruited in most cases, and they were playing with 4th or 5th year guys. And that translated well on the field for Michigan. And then those kids were able to improve their draft status by being at Michigan a 4th and sometimes 5th year. But you've seen the worm kind of turn now. Michigan lost a pretty good amount of guys that decided after winning that national championship that they were going to head to the NFL, even though they could have come back to Michigan. On the other hand, what Ohio State did in player retention was just spectacular. Nobody in their right mind thought Marvin Harrison was going to stay, and he shouldn't have stayed, and he didn't stay. But other than Michael Hall, Ohio State was able to retain every single guy that they wanted to retain. And in this day and age, that's spectacular.
Couple other things real quick, Bill, would be Caleb Downs. I didn't realize, I guess, until the last few months or since the recruitment or the re-recruitment of Caleb Downs in the transfer portal, how close. I know Ohio State was in the running, but just to hear these backstories of the conversations at the time a couple of years ago. So Caleb Downs obviously maintained that connection with Ohio State.
Yeah. When he got in the portal, I think anybody that had followed Caleb Downs' recruitment knew that this one was going to come down to him going back home, so to speak, to Georgia, because he is from Georgia originally. That's where he played his high school football, or going to Ohio State. A lot of people didn't give Ohio State much of a chance there. They thought he's going to go back home and all. But as you mentioned, Mark, there was a lot built up from his recruitment that favored Ohio State, and they were able to get that job done. And to me, he was the missing piece of the defense. You look at their defensive line, on paper, it's tremendous with the guys coming back, that JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, for instance, and Tyleik Williams. Those guys, they were all going to be picked first, second, or at the very worst, third round of the NFL draft, at least in my opinion. So they're all back. In the secondary, Ohio State features great cornerback play. The corners that they have and the ones that they brought in, they were really in good shape there, and they had an excellent safety coming back. They just needed the one more guy at safety, and Caleb Downs is the guy. Talk about three and done guys. He's his picture might be in the dictionary right next to that, if that was something in the dictionary. I mean, he's that talented.
And Bill, there's this dynamic with every Ohio State team, and Ryan Day made that clear today, and he has it at other times, even though everybody's kind of focused on this. Well, this is a boom or bust year. There's so much invested in this year, and I get that, but this is no different than every Ryan Day, Urban Meyer, Jim Dressel, as we go back through history, Ohio State season, that let's win them all. But to maintain that, okay, we have these huge goals down the line, but we can't beat Michigan today. We can't win a national championship today. We can't do these things. Taking the swings, the next rep, the next lift off the bench press, the next film session, just, taking those swings every day that is going to get you there. That's got to be just kind of a difficult thing to manage with these kind of expectations.
Yeah, and Ryan Day's talked about it before. The expectations of Ohio State are enormous, and he knew that when he took the job. They were in my mind one Marvin Harrison injury away from winning the national championship the year before this year. Marvin Harrison doesn't get hurt against Georgia, I think they win the national championship. So they've been there. Now they've got to finish the job this year. Everything's lined up really for that run. They've got a roster that can make that run. They have Michigan at home, and Michigan has lost a lot. They've got a Michigan coaching staff in a lot of transition. Michigan lost more than just Jim Harbaugh. I mean, there were some guys on that staff that they really thought would be returning to Michigan that are headed to the NFL or different places. And that's really, a big transition. So, and they've got Michigan at home. So everything lines up that they can get the job done. And now they really need to go get that job done.
Bill Kurelek, Bucknuts.com, 247 Sports. Bill, it's always a pleasure. And thank you so much for dropping by, breaking down things for us.
I appreciate it, Mark, and enjoy your show. And you have a great day.
Thanks, Bill. Excellent insight there from Bill Kurelek, 247 Sports, Bucknuts.com. Again, our regularly scheduled Buckeyes Live that we present for you each and every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. moves to Thursday because Ryan Day met with the media today. Therefore, we give way to the head coach. And again, it's going to be Buckeyes Live here on the Ohio State channel. Keep in mind, we've got a Buckeyes channel, 11 a.m. Eastern time with Steve, Kevin, and Tony, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Also on Thursday, this has been rumbling around in my skull for a few weeks. But the more I engage on social media, the more topic and content ideas that I have, I thought, you know what? Let's bring it to you here. Let's kick some things around here concerning Ohio State, Michigan, because for all that we intend to do here at the Voice of College Football and cover college football coast to coast, all the conferences, everybody as best we can. Of course, Ohio State and Michigan gain a ton of attention here and elsewhere, and would love to get your feedback on what type of topic ideas. And we're going to present just some things that have been rumbling out there, some debates, some discussions, some rhetoric, some ridiculousness, a lot of that, ridiculous folks out there that spew garbage and crap all over the place. And we want to clear that up and clean up a few things, and then also get your comments, your questions, take your calls, and we'll talk Ohio State, Michigan, Buckeyes, Wolverines. And I know when I put down Skull Session, there's going to be a lot of people thinking, what in the world are we getting into? What are we going to talk about? Let's find out. Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, Ohio State, Michigan, Skull Session. So you got Buckeyes Live Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern time over on the Ohio State channel. If you want to catch up, Buckeyes fans, on Michigan Talk, we've got our Michigan show over on the Michigan channel Tuesdays at 8 o'clock Eastern time. And again, it's Ohio State, Michigan Skull Session Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And don't forget about the Big Ten Live show. It's Friday. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, the Big Ten Live show. We have excellent guests coming our way and also your calls. So you've got a number of times to call me in the next couple nights to talk the Big Ten, to talk Ohio State, Michigan, to talk college football. Again, Thursday at 6 Eastern, Friday at 7 Eastern. Let's see who's in the chat. Anything else here? BGPO Football Funk. Look at that. It's good to see you, DeAndre. What is good? Thanks so much for stopping by. I appreciate the contributions, sir. Good to hear from you. Always love talking college football with DeAndre. Extremely knowledgeable, invested, big Clemson guy, but follows all of college football. Always has some great things to say. Jackson's here. Jackson, we've got some big shows lined up here. I don't know if you caught it, but we're going to do an Ohio State, Michigan Skull Session Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. We've got our Buckeyes Live show that's typically on Wednesday. That moves to Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And then, of course, the Big Ten Live show Friday night at 7. Doug, we feel bad for you. I could probably extend on that joke in other directions. I will not do that out of respect for probably 48% of the population. Hopefully it's 48% of the population. Okay. Lauren asks here, if college players are going to be openly paid, basically employees, is there any reason for the NFL to keep the 3-year rule? So that's a great question. It all depends on what was the impetus of that rule, meaning, is the NFL protecting itself? If the NFL is protecting itself, and I think it was a combination. It was a cooperation between the NFL and college football to say, we want to protect the NFL, meaning we don't want a bunch of 18-year-olds becoming draft eligible and then clogging up our league with players who have the potential to be NFL players, but don't at this point. And then it hurts the player, it hurts the NFL, and it hurts college football. So I think that the 3-year rule helps everyone. Now, going forward, I think it will continue to help everyone. I don't believe that for the most part that 19-year-olds are ready to play in the NFL. Therefore, I just think That's a great question because it's a changing landscape, and therefore that is one thing that could be addressed, and it's one thing that is impacted differently. But I don't think that changes. The way I look at it, I don't think it changes because college football is going to be invested in trying to keep its players. There's already a PR issue with college football fans becoming detached from their favorite players because they're going to play for somebody else the next year within college football. I saw another player today who was a top 25 player coming out of high school, a top 3 cornerback in the nation, Denver Harris, who is going to be going to play for his third team. He didn't accomplish anything at Texas A&M or LSU, and now he's off to Texas San Antonio to try to do something. So I think that protects everyone. And that's another reason why after so many players had left school early, and I'm talking up until about 10 years ago, we had about a 5 to 10 year window in college football moving on to the NFL, where we had players who were not prepared to play in the NFL or not highly regarded by the NFL at that point in their careers, who were getting bad advice from agents in particular, also their posse, their boys around them to say, hey, you can play in the NFL, you can do it, you're ready. And so the NFL cooperated by saying, yes, we will provide a draft grade for each player. And it's a comprehensive look at the evaluation of each player to say, we will provide this for you. So now you can go into the league and you can make this decision as an informed player. So the same thing here. I just think this protects everyone, and that hasn't changed or will not change with the pay of college football players. And that's something I want to do right in providing some content on the NIL and the transfer portal, because I definitely have ideas that I've kicked around, and I have produced some videos in the past, but more or less have kicked it around on live streams when I've been asked about what I would do with the NIL and the transfer portal. So I need to get all that straight in my mind, and we're going to deliver some videos here the next few weeks about what I would do. And as I stated yesterday, I put it this way. I've got ideas. I've got suggestions. I don't pretend to have the answers. I think I have a few answers in amongst those ideas and suggestions, but I do not pretend in any such way to have the answers, all the answers. But I do have some ideas and suggestions on NIL and the transfer portal. Thank you, Jackson. Folks, if you love the SEC, if you want to keep up with the SEC, we've got an SEC channel. Jackson's provided that link in the chat. And also keep in mind, if you just enjoy what we do here at the Voice of College Football, even if you don't like some of these channels, especially with us launching an SEC and Big 12 channel, but you understand it's all connected, so please go and check it out and subscribe. Conundrum. Good question here. Love this one. Does the Big Ten SEC joint advisory group, in which we posted some live streams and videos, so please check them out, force Notre Dame in one of their conferences? I sure hope it will. Now, see, this advisory group, for the time being, doesn't have any power, but it could lead to a position of power. And I think that's where it's headed. I think that's the intent. They're not going to come out, the SEC and the Big Ten, and say, we built and created this joint advisory group, and we're going to start pushing people around and making rules. No, there was a lot of verbiage in their statement to say, we just want to collaborate. We want to provide some direction, some influence on the sport. Well, they're setting the stage. They're setting the stage for takeover. So yes, Notre Dame should be in a conference. And I want Notre Dame fans to understand, every time this topic is brought up, I don't blame Notre Dame. My angst is not with Notre Dame. It's with college football. And if it has to get to a point where college football shuts out Notre Dame, and by that I'm saying we refuse to schedule you, then that's what it needs to be. I don't know how long, though, the ACC agreement is with Notre Dame. I'm guessing it's it's far into the future because it's obviously not just a football deal. That football deal that Notre Dame has with the ACC to play the conference 5 or 6 games per year is tied to its membership in the other, I believe it's 14 sports. It might be more than that Notre Dame is a member of the ACC. So if that was a deal in and of itself between Notre Dame football and the ACC in football, that would be a cleaner situation to clean up. But it's tied to all those other sports as well and ACC membership. So Notre Dame, for as much as they'd like to pull the plug on, well, I don't know that they want to pull the plug, but let's say they want to pull the plug on those ACC games. Of course, they want to feel confident and secure in joining a conference. History be damned between Notre Dame and the Big Ten and all the ill will and all the things that have been decided and all the backstabbing and all the rumors and all the confirmed dealings that they've had in the past that have been unsavory between, again, mostly Notre Dame and Michigan, but Notre Dame and the Big Ten. Notre Dame belongs in the Big Ten. Notre Dame's a Big Ten football school. It just is. It is in so many ways. In terms of the tradition, there is a greater tie to the past at Notre Dame and for a conference, the Big Ten, than anywhere else in the country. The sheer location of the school, of course, they're smack dab in Big Ten country. And then, of course, they have long, illustrious rivalries with Michigan, Michigan State, and Purdue. And those need to be reconvened. And Notre Dame belongs in the Big Ten. And again, I don't fault Notre Dame. I understand their approach. I understand why they would want to stay independent. They see that unique quality being ripped away from them, and then they'll just be another school. And to some degree, they're right. They will just be another school in some ways. Yes, Michigan, Notre Dame. Thank you there, Shady. Shady added education. Yes. I was sticking to the football there. Absolutely. The education, the academics at Notre Dame fitting like a glove in the Big Ten. Absolutely. Everything about this makes total sense and always has. My goodness. I remember writing papers in junior high in the 1980s about Notre Dame joining the Big Ten. Absolutely. It should have been done a long, long time ago. As Jackson says, you can make your own schedule. Yes, and a lot would have to be worked out there. Notre Dame obviously has a penchant for playing service academies, especially Navy. They play Air Force on occasion, Army on occasion, but it's Navy. They've got a rivalry with Navy. They've got a rivalry with USC. Well, voila, USC's in the Big Ten. They've got a rivalry with Stanford. I did think at one point that Stanford would probably be a future member of the Big Ten. That is not the case. Stanford's in the ACC, so I don't know how important that is to Notre Dame. But those are the rivalries that are in place. It's Notre Dame against USC, Stanford, and Navy in some order. USC, paramount. The other two, I don't know that a whole lot of college football fans are going to bat an eye or care if the Notre Dame Navy or the Notre Dame Stanford series is interrupted. We've lost Texas A&M in the past. We're losing Oklahoma State. We've lost Michigan Notre Dame and Purdue Notre Dame and Michigan State Notre Dame. So I think we can do without Notre Dame and Navy. And again, they've got a non-conference slate of 3 games to do with it what they will. Lauren says Notre Dame would care about Navy. Well, they care enough to schedule them every year. There's no doubt about that. I'm not saying that it's insignificant. Yes, Jared, we lost Nebraska, Oklahoma. And for anybody under the age of probably 40 at this point, that's hard for me to say. You probably only have heard, but that, if you would have told somebody in 1985 that the Oklahoma Nebraska game would be done away with, people would be like, are you kidding me? That's one of the pillar games of college football. Well, it was. So nothing is that sacred. I was writing a manifesto. I was writing all sorts of manifestos. I've got a 1984 manifesto about a 16-team college football playoff. 1984. It's like 10,000 words. I don't think my teacher knew what the hell I was talking about. A lot of good people in the chat today, and we just fired this up. We apologize that it was last second. I just wanted to make sure that we had Bill for sure. I didn't know. I knew that Ryan Day was speaking earlier today. I watched the entire news conference and also knew, just because we had to move our Buckeye show to Thursday, and then we got Bill on, and I just wanted to make sure that we had him for sure before we went live. So I apologize for the late notice. Also, check out the video that we posted earlier today with Ryan Abraham of USCfootball.com. If you are into USC football and now you're a member of the Big Ten, USC, Big Ten, the connection, let's not forget about it. It's my brain still has to take a split second and make that connection. USC, Big Ten, with our Big Ten show on Friday night, and with here John Diadamo with his show The Ocho on Monday night that focuses on Big Ten football at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I got to remember, ask Oregon guests, ask Washington guests, USC, UCLA. We talked a little UCLA. We talked Oregon with Ryan Winter on our Big Ten show this past Friday night. Why did I say all that? Yes, because we've got a conversation with Ryan Abraham that we posted earlier today right here on the main channel. And we've got a heck of a USC channel as well, I will admit. Lauren, I hope you're wrong, but I am not saying that you're wrong. I hope you're wrong, but that's where we're headed. But let's continue to understand going forward that although we can all see the professional status already here to a certain extent and being entrenched even more, that only a small percentage of these players will be able to move on and play in the NFL. Then you may say, well, if they can get paid well in college, but that's a temporary fix. So education is still going to be mighty important to most of these players. It just will be. And even if it's just education by relationship, meaning I don't care if I get good grades, I don't care what classes I have, but I need to be at this institution because I'm not playing in the NFL, but I would like to be a coach. I would like to stay in this sport in some capacity for the next 25, 30, 35 years and retire and build a career in this sport. So I'm going to have to make connections. I'm going to have to learn something. I'm going to have to prepare myself for the real world. Yeah, Lauren, that's a loaded statement, but it is certainly headed that way. I hope we can pull the reins short of that. And maybe that connects to your previous point about the 3-year rule for the NFL. What about this? If you want to play in college football, you get paid, you get all these benefits, all these opportunities, you get prepared for the NFL, but you have to be a student because this is a university. This is an educational commodity. Therefore, you have to go to school. You have to pass the classes. You got to go to class. Otherwise, you know what? For those individuals, open up the NFL, allow them entry into the NFL, make them draft eligible. The NFL will probably deny most of them. They won't draft them. Not drafting 18-year-olds out of high school. Now, if we could stick to that model, I think that could work. I just proposed that off the top of my head. But the reason it won't work in practicality is because of corruption. And even if we put a model like that in place, the schools would say, still come to our school. You don't need to go to class, don't need to get the grades. We'll keep you eligible to play football. That's how the corruption started years and years and years ago. Money always corrupts. You would like to have more money. I would like to have more money. In and of itself, there's nothing wrong with money. Money is not the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil, not money. Money's a tool. Money can be a good thing, can be a bad thing, but it corrupts because it changes people. Or, as has been a more common statement in recent years, and I fully agree with this, it's been clarified that money doesn't change people. Money merely reflects or merely emphasizes or exposes who people truly are. That's what it is. But yes, we do appreciate everyone being here at the Voice of College Football. And again, we have a lot going on here, and there are going to be a lot of changes with things that I have going on in my life that we're going to have a pretty busy, I'll use that word, busy. We're going to have a busy 4 to 6 weeks. Hope to get settled, hope to make things better. We'll have our State of the Voice of College Football show with all of you and let you know where we stand on everything. So we are going to continue to provide the content, the live streams, everything, but maybe not quite at the rapid fire pace that we're accustomed to, but that will reconvene here in about a month. So just a lot of things to deal with in the next month or so. But we will be here. And so we appreciate you all being here again. So where do we stand? It is Wednesday afternoon. We've got a Florida State show at 6, Miami at 7. Then on Thursday, we've got the Buckeyes live show at 11 a.m. We've got our Ohio State-Michigan Skull session. Yes, our Ohio State-Michigan Skull session at 6 Eastern. And then the Big Ten live show Fridays at 7. All right. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. If you didn't catch much of the show, we had Bill Kurlek of 247sportsbucknuts.com on. So just rewind it, head on back. Bill had a lot of great things to say. We reviewed Ryan Day's news conference today. And we will see you here in just a few hours on Florida State Live at 6 p.m. Eastern. And a last look at the chat.